Hello, welcome. So I want to talk about ego systems. We all have an ego, right? And it's there to serve our benefit. So each of us has a different way of expressing our egos. And the way I like to look at egos, I like to look at the chakras, because the chakra system is the energy source for the mentality. And I made a video about that. If you're interested in that, I would check out the video. I will post the link in the description down below. But in this video, I want to cover just 5 ego systems, 5 that I've noticed within people. And I think that there could be many different types. When we're talking about people and the human psyche, there's so many different perspectives that you can't really just categorize it. Like, I know our egos like to put things in categories because it makes it easier for our egos to discern things. It makes it easier for us to add our own logic to things, so then we can figure stuff out and make sense of things. And that's exactly what our egos do for us. However, when it comes to our egos, I've noticed that with the solar plexus being the main source of energy for our ego to act on things, the reflection, the emotional reflection of what we're acting on is either based on our sacral, which is an emotional aspect, very me-oriented position, or it's our heart space. And the heart space can really nurture things that is beyond the self, okay? So when it comes to your ego will pay attention to either yourself or nurturing something outside of you. And that could be anything, right? You can nurture something that's not good for you. So keep that in mind. Or you can see things within you that it clouds your perception of yourself, which is what your sacral could do. The sacral can hold lots of like guilt and shame and fear. In fact, when we feel those emotions, it's stemming from the sacral space usually, because we call these things low vibrational emotions. It's just that the sacral can pick up on these very dense emotions, and so our ego is able to reflect its logic, or the solar plexus is able to reflect its logic on those things from the sacral and do something about it through the actions. And so this creates what we see as an ego, because how we react to or respond to our emotions usually either is for our own sake or it's for the sake of others. Okay, so keep in mind that you have the sacral, you have the solar plexus, and then you have the heart. Well, there's not really an order, but just think of it as the solar plexus will either bounce its emotional experience off of the sacral or the heart space, okay? So let's get into the 5 different ego systems that I've been able to recognize, all right? So the first one that I would like to point out, and before I get into this, actually, I want to re-emphasize that your ego clings to one of these ego systems based on the benefit it sees for you and your survival and what makes sense for you and the things that you grew up on and things that you found normal or things that's familiar to you. So it can look very different. You can even have a blend of ego systems, okay? Or maybe it works a certain way in some areas of your life and it works a different way in other areas of your life. So you might notice that too. So keep that in mind. So when it comes to the first ego system, I want to touch on the inflated ego. I'm touching on this one because I notice that a lot of people like when I talk about egos. I like talking about egos too, but let's talk about the inflated ego, because this is one that's becoming very prominent within our society, right? People link the inflated ego to like grandiose narcissism. There's the other form of narcissism too. We'll get into that, but I'm not really talking about narcissism, because you can have an inflated ego and not be narcissistic, believe it or not, but it usually blends into that. So you can think of narcissistic traits. However, when it comes to the inflated ego, this is someone who's built a big ego not necessarily a strong ego, just a big ego, to feel like they're on top of things. It's almost like they put a bunch of stuff they've gathered from different sources. Maybe someone who acts this way, they try to blend that into their own character, or they've seen something happen over here, so they decided to incorporate something within them so then they can avoid that, or they feel like they have to do extra stuff to have that inner security. And so there can be a lot of like boasting or bragging when it comes to the inflated ego, because all of these things all these energies that are being built on top of this ego system, it's like they have more security, inner security, but it stems from insecurity, because when you have this inflated ego and you have to take things from multiple sources and integrate it within yourself, without that inner security within yourself already, then you're just covering a problem. You're just covering something that existed with things that cloud your ability to recognize that. So the inflated ego can care more about themselves than others, of course, and they can really expect loyalty from others without giving that in return. And also they may complain a lot, and they may be only available to help others when it fits their own interest. So when it comes to the inflated ego, you can see this as it being a more of a solar plexus and sacral chakra relationship. Okay, the exchange of energy goes from the sacral emotions to doing the action, the acting on that, the solar plexus. So there may be a disconnect with the heart space, because the heart space is your subconscious mind. So it can be very hard to tap into this area if you haven't been working on it. And since this, the individual with the inflated ego put so much extra add-ons to their characteristics as an individual to protect themselves, they haven't found that inner comfort or that inner sense of centeredness within themselves, because they need to take other things outside of them and integrate it to feel safe in who they are. So the access to the heart space and what the heart space can offer and provide outside of them and provide to them, it's blocked, okay? Or it can be blocked. But you can have a inflated ego and have an open heart space too. But that's like a whole nother ecosystem, okay? So the next one I want to talk about is the covert ego. So this ecosystem does work secretively. It can work underhandedly. It can be quite out of pocket, and the reason why that is because for this kind of ecosystem, the covert ego, it's indirect, and it may conceal things, or it may conceal its own shame and guilt with feeling like it either can't talk about those things, it must do things to cover that. And because of that, it creates the ego of a person who avoids responsibility a lot of times. So this kind of person, if they're kind of like out of sight, then they know that they can't be blamed, right? So they may do things that are like underhanded or sneaky to avoid that responsibility. And it's just a way for their ego to protect them and to benefit the self in the best way they know how. And, you know, when we use our ego systems, it's usually just like in the best way we know how. So with the covert ego, it can be very indirect, and it can be pretty unavailable, because the focus with the covert ego is still in that sacral area, and that energy, that emotional energy, gets projected outwards through the actions, through the solar plexus. So this kind of ego means that a person may not have an open heart space. They may have a hard time accessing the heart space or the heart chakra and nurturing other things. Not saying that they can't, it's just that it usually is because they are covering up something that is within them, okay? So the next ego I want to talk about is, or the next ego system I want to talk about is the vulnerable ego system. So the vulnerable ego system, you know, it serves as a benefit to the person that is using it, right? So with this vulnerable ego, this person may feel like they're the victim. And a lot of the times they may feel like the victim. And this person may even play the martyr, and it's also maybe to avoid responsibility, yes. But when it comes to the vulnerable ego, they may not have a problem admitting fault. However, by admitting fault, it's usually because they'll have some benefit. Like maybe by being vulnerable and admitting fault and being the martyr gives them permission to shut down and not try anymore, to not participate, to not give in any more effort. As I said, it provides some form of benefit to the self. So the person with the vulnerable ego may be able to get away with a lot of things because they can come across as they are being honest and being transparent. But really, it's by admitting fault, they're able to shut down. It gives them permission to stop trying and to stop putting in the effort that would be necessary to either maintain or to make things better. They may even want someone else to save them in a sense, or to help them out in more ways than someone should. You know, they can also take that responsibility away from themselves and somehow turn that guilt that they feel from that vulnerable ego onto the other person. So then they now feel guilty for not helping the person with the vulnerable ego. So that is to serve the benefit of the self, okay? Someone with a vulnerable ego system. Let's get into the next one. The next one is a strong ego. So the strong ego does a lot better than the other three I just mentioned. However, it has its downfall still, because with the strong ego, you know, someone can be very discerning, right? Can be very unwavering in what they choose, and they can be very intentional and sure, and they won't commit to something that they know they can't fulfill, right? Which is good, However, this can lead to a lot of stubbornness, like hard-headedness. Someone who won't take any other perspectives, or who won't take anyone's advice, or won't accept help. Those things all it does is really block the self. So although they may have the strong ego and they can have that exchange with the heart space because they feel so strongly about things, right? They can have that exchange with the heart space and the solar plexus, as well as the sacral and the solar plexus. But depending on the situation, that either transaction comes out depending on the situation. So let's say someone has to pick something because they're running out of time and they just need to pick something now, okay? This person may be very sure about what they're choosing at that time, and they don't want to hear any other options, okay? They don't want to hear about it. Or let's say someone, that's like the sacral, right? They're like, nope, this is benefiting me at this time. This is my choice. I'm sticking to it. But for a strong ego, let's say they're exchanging that energy between the heart space and the solar plexus, then they may be in that strong ego of, no, I have to protect the people I love. You're not welcome here. Stay away from us. You know, stuff like that. So the strong ego can be very beneficial, but it can come off very stubborn and hard-headed and closed-minded, okay, or narrow-minded, however you think of it, which can lead to like mental blockages. It can lead to emotional blockages, but I want to say mental blockages because it's like you're not allowing your mind to expand past what you feel so strongly in, okay? So the last one I'm going to cover, which is the ultimate goal for everyone. I think it should be the ultimate goal. It's the ultimate goal for me, unless there's a better ecosystem. If you know of a better ecosystem than this one, let me know, because I want to know. The last one is the balanced ego. The balanced ecosystem, okay? This is someone who can use both the sacral, the solar plexus, and the heart space, possibly even at the same time, and being able to not just discern how something's going to affect you on a personal level, but how it affects other people in your surroundings or in your environment or within your family group. You know, being able to really balance that and to be open to other perspectives, but yet also integrating that strong ego dynamic and not wavering on your decisions just because you're getting other perceptions. It has that strong ego dynamic, but it's balanced because you're open. You're able to balance between the heart space and the solar plexus and the sacral. You know that it's not just about you, it is about other people too. You know, every decision I make for myself is somehow going to affect other people, right? Or it's just going to affect my environment in general. Like, I may feel too tired to do something, but my negligence can lead to a whole other separate events later down the line, and I can avoid that by being able to balance like what I want right now with what needs to be done, what is best for the situation. And even just putting my instant gratification on the side for a while, just so I can deal with that to avoid a whole mess later, okay? A balanced ego is able to do that. And when you're able to have a balanced ego, the reason why it works out so beautifully is because the chakra system, each chakra has a dominant feminine or masculine energy. Each energy center has a dominant masculine and feminine energy, but they all work to, you know, help one another. So when it comes to the balanced ego, it's actually allowing you to balance masculine and feminine energy within yourself. So then when you have that balance, you're able to make decisions from, they say it, the head and the heart, but for me it's the ego and the heart. Because when it comes to the heart space, you know, this area, these chakras, when you're able to like use these, it can be considered like your higher self. You know, you have more connection to your higher self by using these chakras, okay? Sometimes. You're always using them, but when you're able to pay more attention to these ones, yeah, you can connect with the higher self a lot better. But if you're in the lower chakras, then you are just more in touch with your human nature, with your humanity as a individual. So by balancing the ego between the heart space, which kind of opens that door for you to have access to the higher self, and as well as being able to reconnect with yourself and your own personal emotions, you'll be able to create a result in most situations where things are balanced outside of you. Your environment will be more balanced because what you're doing inside of you, the decisions you make within you, are also balanced. So that's why having a balanced ego system is the main goal. And that's something that I like to touch on with my channel, just trying to get people to understand the importance of balancing these energies within yourself. And these chakras are always working, but you pay more attention, and therefore you're putting more energy into certain chakras than other ones. And so when you're doing that, whatever you're projecting outside, whatever that looks like within you is going to manifest outside of you, okay? But I made a video on how that works. If you want to know how manifestation works in that way, then I would check out my video on the heart chakra subconscious mind. I forgot the other slash that I put in there, but I'll put the link in the description down below. But anyways, I hope you liked this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button. I'll be seeing you in my next one. You take care.